recording, because of the time we'll spend on this and how much I have to show, probably not everything will be captured, because there's no way I can finish everything in class with detail. So now go ahead and go to the next board. So go ahead and go to the gradient mesh, and I'm gonna zoom in. I have brought already one side the image, but let us look at the layers palette. So go ahead, pull up your layers. My layers are somewhere on my page. I just need to pull them out. There they are. You notice I have named different things because I needed to organize it, and now looking at it, I could have done a better job. But at this point, we leave it. We will be actually looking at the gradient mesh, and the layers will come in really handy when we do so in a minute. But before we do, it's just kind of like my guidelines of looking at gradient and what it does. When it comes to a gradient mesh, obviously it does work with a gradient, and it does create a gradient for you, which you can be more specific. Now, there's different techniques of creating gradient if you're using an object as a base, and we will look at that in a second. But what I want you to kind of get started with is how you create a gradient mesh. There are two ways. One way is just computer mandated, where you just select a shape. Okay, so select that square. So that's one way. You go under Object and create gradient mesh. Right, create gradient mesh, and you will see that a mesh came up. By default is 2x2. And flat. What flat means for appearance, it means that it's just using the color that was picked for the shape. Okay, it had divided our path. So notice really looking at 4 squares, and the blend that will happen will be coming from the points. And you can see that you have, if yours isn't like more, do 2x2. Now go ahead, and I want you to click on appearance. And you can see that 2 things, or 3 things really. I already discussed flat, then it's to center. That means the white is coming from the middle out. Notice this is where the gradient starts. It starts from that middle point, but it continues to all the other points. And you can think about this as transitioning between 4 squares. So you have to think about boxes in a minute, okay? Now if I select, instead of to center, I select to edge, it's going from the outside to the middle, right? So it's looking at the points outside. So all the points are white. So our gradient transitions from white to blue, or the other way, from blue to white. Now, so this is one way. Stay there. Don't do anything for now. Just stay. I want to show you another way. But stay where you are. Don't click on anything. Now, another way is doing your own gradient mesh, when you just click on it, right, where you want it. The advantages and disadvantages of starting with both. Honestly, because I practiced with gradient mesh for a while, I would suggest most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, you want to go with the basic create gradient mesh. The reason why, it's going to give you the better way of putting the mesh than when you create it. It's just the lines are better, okay? Just the way it works. There's also called the box technique, which is this one. So that's what we're going to start with. So again, let me go back where you were. Object, gradient mesh. So this is a better way. A lot of times this would be where you want to start, instead of drawing your own mesh. Most of the time, not all of them. Go ahead and change the appearance to center. So we want to make the white transition from middle out, because I want you to see what happens with it. So then highlight is fine, leave it at 100, do okay. We actually will be using the tool in a minute. And so the U, the shortcut, the hotkey is U for gradient tool. That makes a lot, for gradient mesh. Is that make sense? U for mesh. Now notice what I want you to do. Select the gradient mesh tool. U is the shortcut, the hotkey. U as in you see in a minute. You see when you, I guess when you text somebody. Go ahead and click on, kind of divide this section into 2 parts again. kind of right in the middle here. Now, when you click, do you see any change in the fill and stroke? Right now, before you even click? It's not, okay. So you may think, oh, why don't I just select the color, right? What happens if I just select the color now? Where am I? Nothing happens. Okay, I can select the color already. Keeping that in mind, because sometimes I have people not going on a tool and they're clicking the color before they actually do the mesh, and it will change the whole thing for you. Mine is outlined, so I don't know what it's doing. It's doing something else. Again, then let's go select and go ahead and click in that middle here. Now, the last color you used was blue. Do you notice how the blue is still there? So what happened to our white? It's kind of spreading. The white is not spreading as much. So what I want you to do, that point that you just created, I want you to make it yellow. So go ahead, make sure your fill is selected. And then you can go ahead and even color or swatches. I'm just going to use swatches. Select yellow. Alright? So I want you to see what is happening to our gradient, how it's spreading. Now it's divided. Can you imagine? It's coming from this middle point here, but it's going into 4 sections. It doesn't go all the way here. Why not?
That's the origin of your earlier.
Yeah, because you have the white coming up, so it has to blend. So it's not going to pass that point. Very good. Let us add another yellow right here. So since we used yellow, it's going to create it by default. So click on that point. Okay. So we have now how many squares? Or rectangles, really? Yeah, we have 8 now. All right, let's create now this side. So we do in vertical. Again, divide this section into middle part and click. Now this color is, we don't really want yellow. Actually, what I want you to click, undo. I want you to click right on that line here. Right? What I want you to select now for this color, select purple. Okay, so we have purple here, and we will do the same thing on the opposite side of that square, the right side. Click purple. So now how many squares do we have?
16.
Very good. That's good with math. Doing good. Now we have 16 squares, and notice how our transition of blend of the gradient is kind of getting smaller, right? So the more meshes you create, it's creating what is called a mesh patch. I didn't name it. It's called a patch. So the more you have, the patch, it creates more patches that will stop the transition. Now, that also means that every point, if you need to manipulate it, has to be selected. So what I want you to do next is select the ones kind of under on the bottom part. Just select one. Do it with a selection tool. You can use the gradient mesh, but sometimes you may accidentally create another line. So A is the hotkey. Select the point, and again, I want you to add the same purple. You can either click it from where you chose it. It's the same purple color. We are not being original. And then it's other side as well, purple. Okay. Notice what happens to our white. It's already constrained within the middle, but it's spreading on those points because that's what we had it originally, right? So now what we want to do with the white coming from the middle, we want to just leave it right in the middle. So go ahead and select the points kind of where I'm clicking and choose red. It's red. So it's going to look like a colorful, beautiful, artistic piece. Okay, select the second side and red again. So this is what you're looking at. I know, it's beautiful. But this exercise, what it's teaching you is creating meshes. You can see how the mesh, how the gradient behaves, how it blends, and how the more meshes you create, the shorter the transition of a gradient. Keep that in mind, because it come in really handy for your next part. Okay, so go ahead and save your file. Now next to it, you see a little cup. And we will actually tackle the cup in a minute because my earlier class decided that I gave them more challenging work before I gave them the easier one. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to just discuss a little bit, but we won't work on it because you may be crying in a minute. So we don't want that. We'll come back to it. But I want you to analyze the shape. How many shapes you think you can you do a gradient mesh with only one shape?
Yeah.
You could. Do you want to?
No.
No, you'll be crying, okay? So analyze this, and how many shapes do you think you could do? Yes, 3 shapes, right? So you can have that cup here, that part. Then you have the handle as a separate one. And then you have the inside as a separate shape. Now get this, I don't even want you to focus on the inside. We're only going to do gradient mesh on the outside part and on the handle. Now notice that the handle is a different shape than the cup, and that will come into play when you do meshes, because sometimes funky things may happen with it. So we will actually look at this one in a second, right? We're gonna move on to the next gradient mesh on your list. So if you scroll, you have the grapes, and we will come back to the cup after we do the grapes. Get the bottom. So I want you to go to your grapes first. Thank your earlier class. They're like, oh, this one is easier. I think after I showed you the challenging one, they thought it was easier, but you may not think the same way. I hope you do. Now, notice here in layers, we have the grapes layer. So if we are using that grapes layer, what I want you to do is lock it, okay? We won't be touching it. So lock your layer. Now we will create a new one, kind of drawing layer on top of it. So just click new, and then rename it. And we just name it, I'm just gonna name it grapes 2. I should have put a different name for the other one, but I didn't, so just leave it, grapes 2. Now we're gonna go back to our pen tool, because we do love our pen tool. You'll be using pen tool a lot, and go ahead and select P, this pen tool. Now before you start, you may want to select the color. Now if you do, make sure nothing else is selected, because if you are on a different artboard and that was selected, you will mess up your color, okay? So if you're not sure, you can just go ahead, select the selection tool, click somewhere here, right? Click on it so you know, okay, I'm not selecting anything else. Go with the pen tool, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna use another tool, which is the eyedropper tool. Eyedropper tool. Now learn the shortcuts. In a minute, I'm only gonna be speaking in AUI. And you'd be like, what? Because I is for eyedropper, U is for mesh tool, and A is for direct selection tool. And that's gonna be like, it's gonna be ingrained in your head, because you're gonna be using those, okay? So go ahead and pick the mid-tone from your grape. Make sure you are on the right layer too. Don't draw on a different one, okay? So click like the midpoint. And you know what? Actually, let us select this grape here. Sometimes it does the white for me. I'm like, it's no white in this picture. I don't know why it does that. So I have to use a different shade from a different picture. I don't know why. If it did it for you, that's great. For me, sometimes it's being a little pain. Did that earlier too. So let's see. There, that's close enough. So now what we're gonna do is we will draw the shape out. So zoom in. Make sure you're close to the shape as much as you can. You can use the magnifying tool. Right, that's too close. Use your pen tool, and you can go ahead and start drawing the grape. You want to be close to the edge. I don't think that's the middle. Let's see here. Now notice what happens when we actually draw it. The color is taken over, and I will show you how to fix that in a minute, because you do want to see the underlying color. Okay, so something like that.
All the grapes or just one?
I'll just do one for now. Right, now I don't see my shape underneath it. So I'm like, I don't know if my line is any good. You can do the switch. but there's a better way, and I showed you that last time. So when you finish your grape and you think it's not perfect yet, we will make it better. So I showed you the options with layers that you can do. So we're actually going to work in the outline mode. We're bringing forth the underneath layer, okay? So go ahead and click Command Y on your keyboard, or go under View, Outline. And you're like, I don't see anything else. Well, hold the Command key on your board and then click on the Lock Layer Grapes on the eye, that eye. So it's going to toggle visibility. Now, what you won't be able to see is the color that's you coloring right now, but you won't be able to see the underlining color, which you'll be picking, okay? So I just did Command Y, so you have outline mode, and then I click with my Command key on the eye and the layers. That's all I want you to do. So now I can see that my grape needs to be modified a little bit. And if you feel like, okay, maybe it needs another point, change it, you can go ahead and do so. Right? There's my grape. I'm happy. Looks good. Alright, so the color, you need to bring back how it looks like, right? So one way is using the navigator. Anybody ever use the navigator? Navigator is a good tool, however, it won't work as well here, but keep that in mind if you only have one file or one artboard. So I'm going to Window, Navigator. It's kind of tiny, right? Window Navigator, but it shows you your preview mode. Right now it's really small. The reason why, because I have several artboards on it. But if you want to arrange them, you can, and at home if you have one file when you're working on, this will be really handy. Okay? I actually do use it even though it's tiny, so don't forget Navigator. But another thing we'll be doing layers, we'll be tackling the visibility of the other layer back and forth. So we'll be working with layers a lot, right? Keep that in mind. Now, the way we will actually work on this grape, we will create some gradient meshes. So we're going to go with the standard creation of going into Object. So make sure it's selected. You're in the right layer when you do it. Okay, make sure it's selected. Selection tool, Object, and create gradient mesh. And you should have 2 by 2. Is that the option you have? Good. Now it says to center. We don't want anything else because we will define our own color. So make sure you do flat for appearance. Okay, flat. And that's okay. And you're fine. Right, now you will navigate to your direct selection tool, which is A. So you're going to learn those. A is the hotkey. And we have to kind of adjust the shape of this. Notice where our point is really. It's here, right? The lightest part is right in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this point. And it's going to look kind of beat up in a minute. It kind of looks funny now. So we will adjust a few things. Once you move this to the middle, I want you to play with the handles and kind of adjust them, okay? So notice what I'm doing. I'm adjusting my handles to be a little bit straighter. All the points. So notice how the shape is curving. If it's going from this direction, it's curving. I kind of want to follow the same curve. And the reason why, I see how my light is curved. Notice it's curving like this, right? So it's round. It's not straight. So you kind of want to follow that curve. Right? So once you're satisfied, now I might be going fast in a minute. What you want to do is look up, or if you want to, at this moment, you feel like I may just want to watch and not do it, that's fine too. But you can do this part. It's easy. What we're going to change right now, select that point with your direct selection point, and now we're going to look at the eyedropper, which is eye. That makes sense. Eye for eyedropper. And then click on right next to it. Doesn't matter which square, because they're all light. So just click like the lightest square side. Again, zoom in. You need to zoom in. Just keep in mind there are different pixels on it. Now, when you'll be doing more on this grape, do not pay attention to those patches here. Those are separate shapes placed on top. You can place on top. We don't have to worry about them when we're doing the gradient mesh. Okay. So now our color is actually going from that middle, and you can check it. So I want you to go back to visibility, hold the command key, click on the grape tool, and you see mine isn't really smooth, but yours should be lighter in the middle. Is it lighter?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the point where we're starting out. Okay, good. If it's not, you messed up. So redo it. So let us go back and again, click back, command, and then the visibility to hide it. So you kind of see. So now what we have to do, we have to constrain this highlight. So you kind of have to see how this highlight is going out. Notice where it stops the transition. It's somewhere here, right? See that? Can you kind of here, right? You can see it when it stops. You have to look at it. Don't look at me. Don't believe me. You have to look at it. So what we're gonna do where it stops, where it transitions to another color, we want to put some lines there. So go ahead, select your gradient mesh. So you have to find it where it stops, kind of right on the edge. And that's why it's zoom in, because if you don't, you probably won't see it. Right? So somewhere here, and here's more faint. And it doesn't matter what colors we're using now because we will change them. So look at what directions I'm going. I'm going outside of it. So I just created several patches. So I have 3 vertical and 3 horizontal lines going. Okay? So let's see how you're doing on that. So I'm going to go ahead and lock it because I don't want to touch anything else and just leave it alone. Now those outside points, I want you to kind of analyze how the highlight is going, which direction, okay? So we are continuing the highlight going from middle here, this point here, out. So obviously there's some things that have to happen. We need to stop it here. But is this color the same as this one? Maybe. I mean, it looks pretty close to me. So what we're gonna do is we will select this point, and then I just select my direct selection A. So select this point. Now what I want you to do, remember we're going from a middle out. Hold now, select eyedropper I. So just I'm gonna be saying A and I all the time now. And then click right close to the point, right where the color changes, okay? If it's too light for you and if you went too far, you want to select one from outside. So you just have to look at the color. Okay, because you don't want to be too close to the white, so you can do even one outside. At this point here, doesn't matter as long as close. So just check. If it's the same color on both sides, then use this, doesn't matter. If it's different, it means you may have to put other points. Okay? Then go ahead and continue on with your other parts of all the points. So keep selecting it. So A and then I for eyedropper. And notice how I'm selecting that outside. And I, either this one. Now notice what happened. I selected like a different shade. I don't know why. So I'm clicking outside here. Now because the image is a pixel image, you will sometimes select different pixel color. So keep that in mind. So just slowly go with selecting it. So A and then I go outside. Okay. I'm gonna tap back. And I can see this is different shade. See, it's not. So that's good. You want to make sure that colors around here are kind of similar. If they're not, the blend will not come up right. So if your colors, if you're noticing the colors around here are different, choose the one that goes towards outside. Make sense? So if your colors are different here, choose the one outside for every point. So notice what I'm doing. So A and I. And then outside points. So going out. Okay, then outside here. Here as well. And here. Sometimes it picks up a different color, so I just like click on it a few times. Now, because you have pixels, sometimes pixels, one pixel might be a little bit different. Now I have purple. That's good. Alright. I don't know where my light one is coming from. Let me keep checking and picking the colors. I don't trust this one. This one didn't behave. Now sometimes, again, it may happen that you pick a pixel that's lighter than the one next to it. so you can just cheat and go a little bit farther away, okay? Because it happens that way. So at this point, you want to check how your highlight is looking, okay? So again, we will, once you do all the points around, I'm going to toggle the visibility back on with my command and click on the grapes too. And you can see, oh, why is this color transitioning in the bottom for me? You see that? It's transitioning here. I don't know if you can see that on the back, but actually my white is continuing here. Here is fine, but here, kind of continuing. That means I probably haven't put the right color around here. So I'm gonna go back, and then here, my color is not correct in that point, on that point. So I will select that point, and then select a different color for it. Now, it's actually not selecting the right stuff, so I'm just gonna do a little cheating. Alright, so I go back. Okay, so we have our highlight. Now, the highlight is kind of faint. Do you notice it's not as strong as in the image? Why do you think that is? My highlight is kind of weak. I mean, it's there, but look how tiny it is.
Maybe the color is too dark.
Notice how small it is. It's not transitioning as far as I want it to. And the reason why, I'm going to go back in my toggle mode. The reason why is because we are restricting it very soon. We are restricting it so this actually blends. So that means we need more points around here. Because we're going from green to white, and this, looking at this part, is going to blend in the middle. So the highlight doesn't continue all the way. So you can do two ways. One is go outside of it or right within it, depending where you put your lines. So what I'm going to do, I'm kind of analyzing when I put my lines, and I will put one right outside, not too far, not here, okay? Now I'm analyzing this part, and I can decide, okay, am I too far off my highlight? I think I am, right? Can you see that white is more here? So I'm gonna, now it's up to you. You have to analyze your shape. Because if you can put it either outside more or inside. But I'm actually a little bit outside here, so I'm just gonna put it inside. Then here as well, and then here as well. So kind of, we're gonna constrain that. All right. So now what I'm gonna do with those points, I'm gonna go one by one again, and then select the lighter color from here. And then go around, and then select it. Right? So that's how you're gonna constrain it. And that's what you're gonna be doing a lot between A and I, selecting and deselecting. So continue doing your highlights and see how it comes up. Right, so let's see, I'm going to check on it. See, it's kind of here going too far, so I know this gradient has to be a little bit different shade, but here is spreading more. See, it's not spreading more on top, but here it's kind of looking funny. That means the color I've selected needs to be a little bit different. So I'm going to click back on it, look at the point here, select it, and then select the color next to it somewhere. Now, I don't know why I'm selecting this green. Notice how light it comes up. Is yours doing the same thing? Mine is kind of, I'm selecting the green, it comes up like yellow. See if yours is doing that. If not, then continue. Mine is acting funny right now, so. Oh, I selected purple, I guess. I'm going to do that. All right, let's see. Now, there it is. Okay, so this is our, now notice here it's really restricted. We haven't done everything else. So if yours is as bold as mine, kind of like that, that's okay, because we haven't done any other colors yet, okay? So kind of like, this is where you want to be, and we will blend the rest in a minute. All right, so let me show it again. Hide it. And then select the points. Now, sometimes you may have to go outside the lines and double check, make sure the blend is transitioning okay, if you haven't picked the right colors. If you went inside more than outside, you need to select them again and change them, okay? So, make sure all the points are selected when you do it. So that's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm just selecting it. think for every class I have done a little bit different mesh. Every time I do this, my mesh looks different. So there's no set formula. Now, if you think your blend is happening too quickly, like mine did, you may have to move the lines out, or delete them, right? So how's yours looking? And you can do different technique if you work with gradient before. So let me see. Okay. Just here. See how the blend stops here? Here's good. Here. So here's not transitioning smooth. There. Getting better. Right. So this is the principle you'll be using. But let me help you with other lines. Now this one you can be closer or too far depending. I'll show you a screenshot of the other lab what I did. But let us move on past this point, and I want you to see. So if you're doing what you're doing, just save it, okay? Because you can work on it in a minute. We haven't done anything else. Notice here there's actually a transition in color as well on the side. So it's going from lighter to darker, and there's more on the bottom. So what we're gonna do is we are going to put some points and manipulate them. So go ahead and select the mesh. And then I will just click right here. See how it's created our points right there? Okay. And I always start with less because it's easier to change color when you have less points to select than when you have a lot of them. So when I did that, I'm looking at the top of my shape. Top. And I want to select that shade next to it. So again, selecting. So that's what you're going to be doing, always finding the top, select the shade, and keep going till you select it all, okay? So and that's why you want to start with less points. It'll be easier to manipulate when you have many of them. Right, so go ahead and add those points, and if you're with me, you can follow. If not, you can watch and finish later. Okay, so I'm just doing this. So you got to know the hotkeys yet? A and I, right? It's the only thing you have to do now. It's a lot of clicking. So this is not, there's no shortcut for this. You have to be selecting different shades. It does help when you zoom in. Here there's actually another shade happening here that has to add a mesh to it. So in a minute we will do so once I see how this side is coming along. So again, I will toggle the visibility back on and see here. Okay, can you even see that on there? Not so much. Okay, so that's, see, it's a little bit different here, the shade. Okay. Let's see. Good. Right, if you do the side, I just want you to watch now. If you do like the side, going from the side here, then we do have to put another mesh here because there's transition in color as well. So that's where you want to put another one. But again, do it after you select those points. It'll be easier because then you have to add more points working with it. So it just gets more complex as you go. Actually, that's too high. Let's see, we probably need it somewhere here. Not here. Here. Sometimes you need to undo. Undo will be your friend. There it is. That's good. Okay. So when I placed it, I'm just gonna zoom in on that. All those points have to be picked. That makes it a little bit more challenging because you need to make sure you pick all of them. And then this one is the same color here. Okay. there's like 3 points I have, or 4, and all of them have to have the color. Otherwise, if you don't do it, it's gonna look kind of rough. You can zoom in even more. So that's the tediousness of this. Now, if you are not really with me and you're behind, you can just start playing with the highlight. Even if you don't have all those lines, see what is happening. I just really want you to get a feel for it. So you don't even need, the lines don't have to be like mine. You can have more separation. Actually, probably if you have more separation, it'll be even easier for you to manipulate it. So let's see. Okay, the bottom is coming up. Too bad the projector doesn't show all the details here. Oops. Fun thing, huh? That's the fun part, is selecting the different points. And I'm being sarcastic. Alright. I think I'm good on that. Now sometimes I go over my point because I don't trust sometimes when it blends, and I want to make sure I did select the right one. So I will, and you notice here too, there's another highlight going on here. It's another colors that's transitioning. So I will be putting another mesh once I'm done with those colors right here somewhere. Let's see. So sometimes I have to pick the right place. That's too much. But here, that's perfect. So third time I actually did it where I wanted to put, so it's actually going the right way here. Now there's another one here as well, so that probably be 2 of them inside, but I'm not going to create another one until I pick those colors. Be fast, better that way. Okay, because I see there's another transition here. You probably cannot see it on the projector, but look at your shape. And we haven't picked the top. If you haven't picked the top points, this is where you want to also, there'll be another mesh going on here too in a minute. So you can start picking the color from the top now, because you would put another mesh to stop it anyway. So a lot of picking of the color. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Just let's toggle it so I finish that side coloring that. Let's see if it's needs to be more meshes on it. Yeah, it needs something here. Okay. So what I would say now, if I'm looking at it, I'll probably zoom in and you can unclick off of it. Here it needs to be more transitioned, and here as well there's a different color going on, and then top as well. So I can already tell that there needs to be another patch here and probably one here. Now, for this, we're going to do more rudimentary. You don't have to be as detailed, but I would probably put another one right there. Alright, right place. Okay, remember, if you put it right there, you're going out. So never select the one going in this way, going this way. Continue. So I'm going to, again, when I finish that patch, let's see. Okay, good. It's looking good here, and then the top as well, and the side needs to be fixed. So I know already that I need to put some points on top. Some mesh going on here. It's a different shade. Now, again, you see how it matters where you click? Because if you don't click the right place, it's going to do more vertical lines, and I need horizontal in here. So I need to like click somewhere horizontal. That's too much. It's one thing, you kind of have to play with it sometimes. When you creating your own meshes, it is not the most intuitive thing anymore. And you just have to find that's the spot. And you can always move them. Now, if your meshes are not good and you feel like you need to manipulate several points and move them, you can select it with a shift key, select different points, and you can move them, okay? Which I think I will with this one. Let's see. Oh, zoom in a little bit. This might be easier, the shift key. So notice how I'm moving the points with the shift key. So I just move those up. When I selected the shift, I selected the points, I can move the shape up, or I can move it. Just now here, funny thing happens, but I'm okay with that. I'll be selecting those points next. And the fun continues of selecting. Never ending story. And this is actually a simple shape. You have to start somewhere. Probably like, yeah, that's so simple. Alright. See how my points are looking. Yeah, that's fine. I think the only thing I have to fix is some color happening here, because it doesn't look right. Now let's see. Yeah, all right. So if you see that there needs to be more on here for the grape, adding some more color, you can add more lines to it. Now here, notice it's not as smooth, and here the projection is killing this part, but here is actually true. It's not as blended. So if you have lines like this, see, this is doing a good job here until you have to blend the top, and then here. So always check your shape, kind of zoom out from it. And what happened here is that line here messed it up. So what I would do is to remove it. That's the way to get around it, okay? If your lines are so close that it's creating a little edge like that, that means that line has to be removed. So at this point, I'm actually going to remove that line. And it's going to create a much smoother transition for you. Okay, now keep in mind if you're going vertically or horizontally, because it will make a difference. See, notice it's gone. You see that? I just deleted it, holding the delete key. I'm going to delete this one too. I'm kind of getting into deleting mode right now. But that continues here, so I don't want to delete that one. So you kind of have to see where the line will transition. Okay, so I see this one here needs to be selected. So I pick that one, and we see that now. Yeah. See, notice here it goes lighter if you delete it. That's probably because you don't want to delete that part, or you need to transition the shade here. So, FYI. Not from the grape. Oops. Okay, so I think I got carried away with that many points. I'm gonna delete some of them. Okay, and you can always move them around. That's good. I don't know. I guess I undid too many times because I undid it and the line came back. Sometimes
Toggle between doing it vertically and doing it horizontally.
you have to just click on the even vertical line or horizontal.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no other way. There. So our grape, notice our grape is looking pretty good, right? So we have done a pretty good job to the grape. It just has to be some manipulation, but it looks pretty realistic when you zoom out. So this would be one mesh that I've done. You can look at that one. And for the other class, you can see that I created a different mesh. So every class is different. Let me show you the other one so you actually have a reference that is recorded in case your mesh doesn't look exactly this way. Okay, notice the difference between meshes? This one and then this one. Similarity and differences, right? So notice here they're not as close together. And actually I noticed that actually I like it better a little bit separated. So here I had it too close maybe. But here I have more lines. So it really depends. Here I added another line. So you can always go into more detail. I just want you to have the basics of it, okay? And if you feel like it needs more, you can just keep working on it until you have it more detailed. Yep, it's not the easiest thing to do. It takes some work, but I'm telling you, once you do it, it'd be rewarding to kind of see your results. I think there's another line should go here as well. So let me see here. A little bit here. Right. So, and when you're done and you're happy, make sure you save your work. And at home, you have to do all the grapes except the small one. Don't worry about the tiny grape, okay? That tiny grape is not necessary to worry about. And if your lines are really too close, you can always move them up a little bit of the way, kind of separate them.
Do we need to draw the stems too?
No, you don't have to draw any stems. No, I don't want any stems. I just want the grapes. So you'll be doing all of them. Right. Well, let's see.
How do you get rid of the line?
Oops. Sorry?
How do you get rid of the big striped lines? It ends up looking like a plus sign.
Okay, if you're using the stripe lines, it's probably the blend. So it has to be blended a little bit more. So you need to look at the colors that you're using and blend them. Yeah. So do all the grapes and we'll look at the next one.